Beloved, this is not just another Tuesday, and we are stepping into a divine appointment with destiny. There are moments in time when heaven interrupts delay, when God accelerates what has been stagnant, and when what seemed postponed suddenly becomes positioned. Today is one of those moments. Today, we confront every force that has tried to slow your progress, sabotage your timing, or frustrate your faith. This is your Some of you have been waiting longer than you expected. You've prayed, you've fasted, you've sown, you've prepared, and yet it feels like the promise has been moving in slow motion. But hear me prophetically, delay is not denial, and postponement is not punishment. Often, delay is the final resistance before divine acceleration. When God is about to release momentum, there is friction. When breakthrough is imminent, opposition intensifies. What you have been experiencing is not a stop sign. It is a setup for supernatural speed. Today, we are not begging. We are legislating in the spirit. We are dismantling cycles of stagnation. We are tearing down invisible barriers. We are revoking every demonic embargo placed on your time, your resources, your opportunities, and your advancement. Anything that has been sitting in limbo must move. Anything that has been held up must be released. Anything that has been slowed down must be accelerated. We are activating prophetic momentum, momentum in your career, momentum in your finances, momentum in your relationships, momentum in your spiritual authority. There is a Kairos moment attached to this prayer. Kairos is God's appointed time colliding with your readiness. And I sense that many of you are ready. You have been refined in the waiting. You have been strengthened in the process. You have been disciplined in obscurity. And now heaven says it's time. Time for doors to open. Time for emails to come through. Time for contracts to be signed. Time for healing to manifest. Time for restoration to accelerate. Time for what was delayed to suddenly overtake you with favor. As we pray today, align your faith with acceleration. Align your words with movement. Align your expectation with manifestation. Refuse to rehearse the delay. Refuse to meditate on the frustration. Instead, declare that this is your season of divine synchronization. What belongs to you will not pass you by. What has your name on it cannot be given to another. What God ordained for this season will not be postponed another day. Get ready. This prayer is going to break resistance. It is going to shift timelines. It is going to activate divine partnerships and unlock supernatural speed. The God who controls time is stepping into your timeline, and when he steps in, delay must bow. Stay with me. Engage your spirit and prepare yourself, because prophetic momentum is about to be released over your life. Delay is not denial. It is not God withholding. It is not heaven ignoring your prayers. It is not evidence that you have been forgotten, overlooked, or disqualified. Delay is often divine preparation for acceleration. What feels like a pause in the natural is often intense activity in the spirit. While you were interpreting silence as absence, God was orchestrating alignment. While you were measuring time by calendars and clocks, God was measuring readiness, capacity, and character. We live in a culture that worships speed. We want instant results, immediate answers, quick manifestations. But God is not bound by urgency. He is committed to accuracy. He will not release you into something your spirit cannot sustain. He will not open a door your character cannot manage. He will not elevate you beyond the level of your discipline. So when you experience delay, it is not a rejection. It is refinement. It is heaven strengthening the infrastructure of your life so that when acceleration comes, you will not crumble under the weight of answered prayer. There are blessings that require bandwidth. There are opportunities that demand maturity. There are mantles that necessitate endurance. If God were to answer some prayers prematurely, they would become burdens instead of breakthroughs. So he allows process. He allows development. He allows hidden seasons where roots grow deeper before branches extend wider. Because acceleration without foundation leads to collapse, but acceleration built on preparation leads to legacy. Some of you have been in a season where nothing seems to be moving. The doors you knocked on remain closed. The opportunities you anticipated have not materialized. The promises spoken over your life feel distant. And the temptation is to internalize the delay as denial. The enemy whispers that you missed your moment, that you are behind, that others have surpassed you, that time has run out. But delay is not proof that God changed his mind. It is proof that he is aligning the right time, the right place, the right people, and the right conditions for sustainable success. Consider how seeds operate. When planted, they disappear beneath the soil. For a while, there is no visible evidence of growth. If you judged by appearance alone, you would assume nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, roots are expanding, systems are forming, life is developing. The delay between planting and harvest is not inactivity, it is incubation. And incubation is essential for manifestation. You are not buried, you are planted. You are not stuck, you are stabilizing. You are not forgotten, you are being fortified. Delay often exposes what acceleration will require. It reveals impatience that must be surrendered. It uncovers insecurities that must be healed. It confronts habits that must be broken. In the waiting, God recalibrates your motives. He purifies your intentions. He stretches your faith. Because when momentum is released, there will be no time to question your identity. When doors open rapidly, there will be no space to negotiate self-doubt. The delay is strengthening your internal conviction so that when acceleration arrives, you will move with clarity and confidence. There is also protection in delay. What you thought was postponed may have been preserved. What you interpreted as a setback may have been a shield. God sees conversations you are not in. He sees decisions being made behind closed doors. He sees instability you cannot detect. He sees timing you cannot calculate. So he withholds not to punish you, but to protect you. He delays not to frustrate you, but to fortify you. He pauses not to diminish you, but to position you. And then there is alignment. Divine acceleration requires synchronization. The right opportunity must meet the right version of you at the right moment. If the opportunity arrives before your transformation, you sabotage it. If your transformation is complete, but the opportunity is premature, it collapses. So heaven orchestrates intersections. God coordinates details. He arranges meetings. He shifts environments. He restructures timelines. What feels like delay is often the precise calibration of destiny. You must understand that delay is seasonal, not permanent. It has an expiration date. It has an assignment. It has a purpose. Once the purpose is fulfilled, acceleration becomes inevitable. And acceleration in God does not trickle. It overtakes. When divine momentum is released, what took years to prepare can unfold in months. What required patience suddenly produces progress. What felt stagnant begins to surge, because the same God who allowed the delay controls the speed of the breakthrough. Do not measure your life by comparison. Someone else's acceleration is not your denial. Everyone has a distinct assignment, a unique rhythm, a specific timetable. Comparison distorts perception. It makes delay feel like deficiency. But your process is customized. Your preparation is tailored. Your path is intentional. The delay you are experiencing is preparing you for a dimension of influence that cannot be rushed. There is something powerful about being strengthened in obscurity. In hidden seasons, your identity becomes anchored in God rather than applause. Your confidence becomes rooted in calling rather than validation. Your faith becomes resilient because it is not dependent on visible results. Obscurity trains you to move by conviction instead of confirmation. So when acceleration arrives and visibility increases, you are not intoxicated by attention. You remain grounded because your foundation was formed in private. Delay also cultivates endurance. Endurance is the ability to maintain belief when evidence is scarce. It is the capacity to continue preparing when manifestation is absent. It is the discipline to stay faithful when outcomes are uncertain. Acceleration without endurance creates instability. But acceleration paired with endurance produces sustainability. God is not just concerned with getting you there, He is concerned with keeping you there. When you shift your perspective, delay loses its power to discourage. Instead of asking, why hasn't it happened yet? You begin to ask, what is being developed in me right now? Instead of interpreting silence as abandonment, you recognize it as construction. Instead of viewing waiting as wasted time, you understand it as strategic investment. You begin to see that the process itself is producing strength, wisdom, discernment, and resilience. There are moments when heaven seems quiet because heaven is concentrating. There are seasons when nothing appears to change because everything is being rearranged. Do not despise the delay. Do not resent the process. Do not forfeit your faith in the waiting, because when divine preparation is complete, acceleration will not require your striving. It will flow from alignment. It will move with precision. It will unfold with authority. And you will look back at the delay and recognize that it was never denial. It was divine orchestration preparing you for a level of speed, influence, and impact that only maturity could sustain. There are moments in your life when the resistance you feel is not natural. It is spiritual. You can sense it. You are qualified, yet overlooked. You are prepared, yet postponed. You are consistent, yet results seem inconsistent. It feels like pushing against an invisible wall. That wall is not coincidence. It is not random. It is resistance. And today we confront it. Today we dismantle spiritual resistance and invisible barriers that have attempted to obstruct your advancement. Not every delay is divine preparation. Some delays are engineered by opposition. There are forces that thrive on stagnation. There are patterns designed to keep you cycling in limitation. There are unseen influences that attempt to frustrate your progress, drain your momentum, and exhaust your faith. Spiritual resistance often disguises itself as normal inconvenience, repeated setbacks, or chronic obstruction. But when you discern it, you stop tolerating what you were meant to confront. Invisible barriers are subtle. They do not announce themselves. They manifest as almost breakthroughs, doors that nearly open, opportunities that almost finalize, relationships that almost stabilize, promotions that almost materialize. It is the constant almost that reveals resistance. It is the repetitive near miss that signals interference. And if you do not recognize the pattern, you normalize it. But today we break the pattern. Resistance operates through agreement. It feeds on doubt, fear, procrastination, and negative expectation. When you internalize the lie that this is just how it is, you empower what was meant to be temporary. When you accept stagnation as your portion, you give permission to cycles that should have been severed. That is why awareness is powerful. The moment you identify resistance, you can revoke its access. The moment you discern a barrier, you can dismantle it. Spiritual resistance often targets areas of greatest potential. The stronger the calling, the stronger the opposition. The greater the assignment, the more intense the interference. If your life carries weight, there will be warfare. If your future carries influence, there will be friction. Resistance is not evidence of weakness. It is often confirmation of purpose. The enemy does not fight what is insignificant. He contests what is impactful. Invisible barriers can be generational. Patterns of limitation passed down subtly through mindset and behavior. Cycles of lack, cycles of instability, cycles of broken momentum. Sometimes the barrier is not external, it is inherited thinking. It is the belief that success is for others. It is the assumption that breakthrough is temporary. It is the expectation that disappointment is inevitable. These internal barriers are just as powerful as external ones, and they must be dismantled intentionally. There are also environmental barriers, atmospheres saturated with negativity, circles that normalize mediocrity, systems that resist innovation. If you remain in environments that contradict your calling, you will constantly feel resistance, not because you are incapable, but because the atmosphere is incompatible. Discernment reveals whether the barrier is internal, relational, systemic, or spiritual. And once identified, you can confront it with authority. Dismantling resistance requires more than frustration, it requires strategy. You do not defeat spiritual opposition with emotional reaction. You defeat it with disciplined alignment. Alignment in thought, alignment in speech, alignment in action. When your words contradict your prayers, you empower resistance. When your habits undermine your declarations, you reinforce barriers. But when your belief, confession, and conduct align, you weaken opposition. There are times when resistance intensifies because you are close to breakthrough. The barrier becomes thicker right before it breaks. Pressure increases right before release. This is where many retreat. They interpret intensified resistance as a sign to stop. But often it is a sign to press. When you feel the pushback escalate, it may be because the wall is about to crack. If you withdraw too soon, you prolong what was about to collapse. Invisible barriers thrive in silence. They persist when unchallenged. But when you speak with authority, when you declare truth over lies, when you confront patterns instead of accommodating them, you shift the atmosphere. There is power in naming what you are dismantling. There is strength in refusing to coexist with obstruction. You were not designed to negotiate with limitation. You were equipped to overcome it. Resistance also attacks confidence. It whispers that maybe you are the problem. Maybe you are not capable. Maybe you should lower your expectations. But resistance distorts perception. It magnifies setbacks and minimizes progress. It highlights flaws and ignores growth. That is why you must guard your mind. Because if resistance captures your thoughts, it will influence your decisions. And if it influences your decisions, it can delay your destiny. Breaking invisible barriers requires spiritual authority. Authority is not arrogance. It is alignment with divine permission. It is understanding who you are and what you carry. It is recognizing that you are not a victim of unseen forces, but empowered to confront them. Authority is exercised through clarity, conviction, and consistency. You do not dismantle resistance once, you persist until it collapses completely. Sometimes the barrier is distraction. You are busy but not productive, active but not advancing, occupied but not effective. Distraction consumes energy without producing progress. It keeps you moving in circles instead of forward. Recognizing distraction as resistance shifts how you respond. You become intentional. You prioritize with precision. You eliminate what drains momentum. You guard your focus because you understand that clarity accelerates breakthrough. There are also emotional barriers. Unforgiveness that anchors you to the past. Fear that paralyzes risk. Shame that silences ambition. These internal walls can be invisible yet immovable until confronted. Healing is part of dismantling. Releasing offense is part of dismantling. Rewriting internal narratives is part of dismantling. You cannot carry emotional bondage into accelerated seasons. It will sabotage what you prayed for. When you commit to dismantling resistance, you must remain vigilant. Barriers rarely collapse quietly. They resist removal. They attempt to reestablish themselves through discouragement, delay, or distraction. But persistence dismantles what pressure alone cannot. Consistency erodes what intensity cannot immediately destroy. You keep showing up, you keep declaring, you keep aligning, you keep advancing even when the wall still appears intact. There is a shift that happens when resistance breaks. Momentum replaces stagnation. Clarity replaces confusion. Confidence replaces doubt. Doors that were sealed begin to open. Conversations shift. Opportunities align. You realize that the barrier was never stronger than you. It was simply unchallenged. And once confronted, it could not withstand sustained authority. You are not meant to live pushing against invisible walls. You are not assigned to perpetual obstruction. You are not destined for repeated almosts. Every barrier that has attempted to contain your potential can be dismantled. Every resistance that has tried to frustrate your progress can be confronted. Every unseen force that has engineered stagnation must respond to authority. And as you rise in awareness, alignment, and action, what once felt immovable begins to fracture under the weight of persistent faith and disciplined obedience. There are seasons in life where movement feels repetitive rather than progressive. You are active, but not advancing. You are busy, but not building. You are exerting effort, but not experiencing evidence. That is the subtle nature of stagnation. It does not always look like failure. Sometimes it looks like routine without results, motion without momentum, repetition without reward. And if left unaddressed, stagnation becomes a cycle. Cycles create comfort zones. Comfort zones create containment. And containment quietly robs you of expansion. Breaking cycles of stagnation begins with awareness. You must recognize when you are circling the same mountain, the same type of disappointment, the same financial struggle, the same relational pattern, the same emotional triggers, the same inconsistent discipline. When outcomes keep repeating despite different circumstances, it signals a cycle, and cycles do not break accidentally, they break intentionally. Procrastinated promises are often tied to internal hesitation. You may be waiting on God, but sometimes God is waiting on you, waiting for you to step, waiting for you to apply, waiting for you to release, waiting for you to risk, waiting for you to forgive, waiting for you to believe beyond your current comfort. Stagnation is not always external resistance. Sometimes it is internal reluctance. Fear of failure can look like patience. Fear of visibility can disguise itself as humility. Fear of responsibility can masquerade as contentment. Cycles are reinforced by habits. Daily patterns shape long-term outcomes. If your habits contradict your goals, stagnation becomes predictable. You cannot desire growth but practice inconsistency. You cannot pray for expansion but avoid preparation. You cannot ask for opportunity but resist discipline. Breaking stagnation requires alignment between intention and action. What you say you want must match what you repeatedly do. There are also mental cycles, thoughts that replay without challenge, narratives that define your limits, labels accepted from past experiences. If your internal dialogue reinforces defeat, your external progress will reflect it. You must audit your thinking. What beliefs have you normalized that contradict your potential? What assumptions have you adopted that restrict your expansion? What fears have you entertained so long that they feel factual? Transformation begins when you confront the script running in your mind. Procrastinated promises often test endurance. You received a word, you felt conviction. You saw a glimpse of what could be. But time passed and manifestation did not match expectation. Discouragement attempts to convince you that the promise expired. But delay does not nullify destiny. However, between prophecy and fulfillment lies participation. You cannot passively wait for what requires active obedience. Promises unfold as you move. Stagnation thrives in comfort. Growth requires disruption. If your routine never stretches you, it will eventually shrink you. If your environment never challenges you, it will eventually confine you. Breaking cycles may require changing circles, adjusting schedules, refining priorities, eliminating distractions. Growth is rarely convenient. It demands decisions that feel uncomfortable at first but liberating later. There is also the cycle of comparison. Measuring your timeline against someone else's progress creates artificial pressure or false complacency. You either feel behind and defeated or ahead and relaxed. Both extremes stall momentum. Your assignment is unique. Your process is specific. Comparison distorts clarity. When you focus on your lane, you regain direction. When you reclaim your focus, you reclaim your pace. Sometimes stagnation is disguised as loyalty. Loyalty to old versions of yourself. Loyalty to outdated strategies. Loyalty to expired seasons. You cannot carry yesterday's methods into tomorrow's opportunities. What worked before may not work now. Evolution is necessary. Adaptation is essential. If you cling to familiarity, you resist expansion. Breaking cycles requires releasing what once felt safe. There are relational cycles as well. Patterns of overgiving, patterns of avoidance, patterns of choosing potential over alignment. If your relationships consistently drain rather than develop you, stagnation will follow. Energy misplaced becomes opportunity missed. You must evaluate who has access to your time, your mind, your emotions. Not everyone is assigned to your next level. Some were seasonal, not permanent. Financial stagnation often reflects strategic gaps. Are you investing in growth or consuming comfort? Are you budgeting with intention or spending emotionally? Are you increasing skills or repeating routines? Prosperity responds to wisdom and discipline. Breaking financial cycles may require education, mentorship, and calculated risk. Waiting without strategy prolongs limitation. Emotional stagnation is subtle. Unresolved disappointment can freeze ambition. Unhealed betrayal can block trust. Unprocessed grief can numb desire. If you carry emotional weight from the past, it can anchor your future. Healing is not optional for progress. You cannot step into new dimensions while clinging to old wounds. Freedom internally precedes freedom externally. Procrastinated promises sometimes expose misplaced identity. If your sense of worth is tied to immediate outcomes, delay will destabilize you. But when identity is anchored in purpose rather than performance, you remain steady through process. Stability empowers persistence. Persistence dismantles cycles. Breaking stagnation requires decisive action. Small, consistent shifts compound over time. One disciplined habit replaces one destructive pattern. One courageous conversation disrupts one unhealthy dynamic. One bold step interrupts one lingering delay. Progress is often incremental before it becomes exponential. Do not despise small beginnings. Momentum begins subtly before it becomes visible. You must also guard against perfectionism. Waiting for ideal conditions can prolong inactivity indefinitely. Conditions rarely become perfect, they become navigable. If you require certainty before movement, you will remain stationary. Faith operates in motion. Clarity increases as you move, not before. Cycles lose power when confronted with awareness, strategy, and sustained action. You are not confined to repetition. You are not assigned to mediocrity. You are not destined to circle what you were meant to conquer. Every procrastinated promise can be activated through obedience. Every stagnant area can respond to disciplined change. Every repeated limitation can be interrupted by intentional growth. And as you commit to breaking patterns rather than accommodating them, what once felt permanent begins to shift under the pressure of decisive faith and consistent action. There is a difference between chronological time and appointed time. Chronological time measures seconds, minutes, hours, and years. It moves steadily, predictably, without emotion. But appointed time, Kairos time, is different. Kairos is not about the ticking of a clock. It is about the convergence of readiness, opportunity, and divine orchestration. It is the moment when preparation meets permission. It is the intersection where heaven's agenda collides with your obedience. And when you step into Kairos timing, progress that once felt delayed begins to move with supernatural precision. Many people live governed only by chronological time. They measure their worth by age, their progress by deadlines, their purpose by societal expectations. They panic when milestones are not reached according to cultural timelines. They assume that if something has not happened yet, it will not happen at all. But Kairos timing does not submit to pressure. It unfolds when alignment is complete. It activates when the internal and external conditions synchronize. Activating Kairos timing requires discernment. Not every opportunity is appointed. Not every open door is assigned. Not every invitation is aligned. You must develop sensitivity to recognize when a moment carries divine weight. Kairos moments often feel different. There is clarity, there is conviction, there is an unexplainable urgency paired with peace. It is not frantic striving, it is focused movement. You sense that delay would be disobedience. Preparation positions you for Kairos. Appointed moments do not reward wishful thinking, they reward readiness. If the opportunity appeared today, would your discipline sustain it? If the platform expanded tomorrow, would your character support it? If the door opened suddenly, would your skills justify it? Kairos does not eliminate responsibility, it magnifies it. What was developed in obscurity becomes visible in acceleration. Sometimes Kairos timing requires patience before it demands action. There are seasons where restraint is wisdom. Moving prematurely can disrupt alignment. Acting out of emotion can fracture destiny. Waiting is not weakness when it is strategic. Silence is not stagnation when it is preparation. The discipline to wait until the appointed moment separates impulse from intention. But when Kairos arrives, hesitation becomes costly. You cannot overanalyze a divine window. You cannot procrastinate a prophetic opportunity. Kairos moments are often time sensitive. They require courage. They require faith. They require decisiveness. Fear will attempt to convince you to delay. Doubt will whisper that you are not ready. Comfort will tempt you to postpone. But Kairos does not linger indefinitely. It invites response. Alignment is central to activating appointed time. Alignment in mindset, alignment in relationships, alignment in priorities. Misalignment delays manifestation. If your daily habits contradict your long-term vision, you disrupt timing. If your circle undermines your conviction, you distort clarity. If your focus is divided, your momentum is diluted. Kairos thrives in alignment. When your actions, beliefs, and environment harmonize with your assignment, timing accelerates. There are moments when you feel a shift internally before anything changes externally. That internal shift is often the signal of approaching Kairos. Your confidence stabilizes. Your perspective expands, your fear diminishes, your desire intensifies. Something within you recognizes that the season is changing. Before doors open outwardly, conviction strengthens inwardly. That strengthening is preparation for movement. Kairos timing also requires release. You cannot step into appointed moments while clinging to expired seasons. Old identities, outdated roles, and familiar limitations must be surrendered. What once defined you may not sustain you. What once protected you may now restrict you. Transition is uncomfortable, but necessary. You cannot embrace new dimensions while gripping former definitions. Divine timing is not random. It is orchestrated. Conversations align. Resources appear. Connections intersect. Information surfaces. The right people recognize you at the right moment. What seemed coincidental reveals coordination. But coordination responds to cooperation. You must be attentive. You must be responsive. You must be willing to move when clarity comes. There is also a refining that precedes Kairos. Testing strengthens capacity. Challenges sharpen discernment. Delays develop endurance. Every previous season contributes to appointed moments. Nothing was wasted. Every lesson prepared you. Every obstacle matured you. Every setback strengthened you. When Kairos activates, it draws from everything you endured. Impatience can sabotage appointed time. Forcing doors open prematurely creates consequences you were not prepared to manage. Manufacturing momentum leads to fragile success. Kairos is not about manipulation. It is about manifestation. It unfolds organically when readiness and opportunity converge. Trusting timing requires surrendering control. It demands faith that alignment is more powerful than anxiety. When Kairos is activated, movement feels accelerated yet ordered. Things unfold rapidly, but not chaotically. Progress occurs with clarity. Decisions carry confidence. There is grace for what once felt difficult. Tasks that were heavy become manageable. Conversations that seemed complicated become fluid. The atmosphere shifts. Stepping into appointed time requires courage to leave comfort. You cannot remain where you were and embrace where you are going. Familiarity must yield to faith. Stability must sometimes surrender to stretch. Security must give way to significance. Kairos moments often demand risk, but they carry reward proportionate to obedience. Discernment protects Kairos from distraction. Not every urgent demand deserves your response. Not every crisis requires your involvement. Focus guards momentum. When you recognize appointed time, you eliminate what competes with it. You protect your energy. You steward your clarity. You prioritize what aligns with purpose. You were not created to live misaligned with destiny. You were designed to intersect with appointed moments. There are seasons marked for your advancement, windows prepared for your emergence. opportunities reserved for your obedience. Kairos timing is not accidental, it is intentional. And as you cultivate readiness, guard alignment, exercise discernment, and move with courage, the appointed moment that once seemed distant begins to unfold with precision, inviting you to step fully into the convergence of preparation, permission, and purpose. There are seasons when progress feels incremental, measured, and slow. And then there are moments when heaven releases supernatural speed. Speed that is not chaotic but calculated. Speed that is not reckless but strategic. Speed that does not skip preparation but rewards it. Commanding supernatural speed is not about impatience, it is about alignment. It is about stepping into a rhythm where momentum is no longer resisted but released. Supernatural speed begins in the mind before it manifests in the environment. If your thinking is delayed, your movement will be delayed. If your perspective is small, your progress will be restricted. You cannot move swiftly while entertaining limiting beliefs. You cannot advance rapidly while doubting your capacity. Mental alignment is foundational. When your thoughts agree with your purpose, you remove internal friction. And when internal friction is removed, acceleration becomes sustainable. Strategic alignment means every part of your life begins to move in the same direction. Your habits support your goals. Your relationships reinforce your vision. Your schedule reflects your priorities. Your resources are allocated intentionally. When alignment is absent, energy is scattered. Scattered energy produces slow results. But when alignment is present, focus intensifies. Concentrated focus produces accelerated outcomes. Supernatural speed does not ignore discipline, it amplifies it. What you practice quietly becomes powerful publicly. What you build consistently begins to multiply rapidly. Speed without structure leads to collapse, but speed built on structure leads to expansion. You cannot command acceleration in areas where you have neglected preparation. The groundwork determines the velocity of growth. There are moments when divine acceleration compresses time. What would have taken years begins to unfold in months. What seemed complicated becomes streamlined. What required effort begins to flow. But this compression is not random. It responds to obedience. It responds to readiness. It responds to clarity. When you know what you are called to do and you commit fully, momentum gathers. Distractions are the enemies of speed. Every unnecessary commitment siphons focus. Every unresolved conflict drains energy. Every unexamined fear delays movement. If you desire acceleration, you must become ruthless about elimination. Remove what does not align. Release what does not contribute. Refuse what does not serve your assignment. Speed requires lightness. You cannot run swiftly while carrying avoidable weight. Strategic alignment also involves timing. Moving too soon creates instability. Moving too late forfeits opportunity. Discernment reveals when to act and when to wait. Supernatural speed is not frantic motion. It is precise response. It is stepping when the door opens. It is speaking when clarity comes. It is deciding when conviction settles. Precision preserves acceleration. There is also a relational dimension to momentum. The right partnerships can accelerate what isolation delays. The right mentors can shorten learning curves. The right collaborators can multiply impact. Alignment with people who share vision, values, and integrity increases velocity. Misaligned relationships create resistance. Evaluate who walks with you. Agreement in purpose amplifies progress. Fear often disguises itself as caution. It convinces you to overanalyze instead of act. It persuades you to delay decisions that require courage. But supernatural speed demands boldness. You cannot accelerate while constantly retreating. Confidence is not arrogance. It is trust in preparation. When you have done the work, you must move with assurance. Momentum is cumulative. Small wins create larger breakthroughs. Consistent discipline produces compounded results. Every focused day contributes to accelerated seasons. Do not underestimate incremental progress. It is the quiet builder of rapid expansion. What appears gradual now can become exponential later. Strategic alignment requires self-awareness. Know your strengths, understand your weaknesses, recognize your distractions, identify your peak productivity hours. When you operate in self-awareness, you maximize efficiency. Efficiency fuels speed. Inefficiency drains it. Optimize your routines, streamline your processes, refine your methods. Excellence accelerates opportunity. There are spiritual dimensions to speed as well. When favor aligns with faithfulness, doors open unexpectedly. When obedience aligns with opportunity, advancement feels effortless. When clarity aligns with courage, results multiply. You may call it coincidence, but it is coordination. The unseen realm responds to sustained alignment. Procrastination is momentum's adversary. Every delayed decision postpones potential. Every postponed action extends stagnation. If clarity has come, act. If conviction is present, move. Indecision slows progress more than obstacles. Choose decisively, adjust quickly, learn continuously. Supernatural speed also requires resilience. Acceleration brings visibility. Visibility invites scrutiny. Scrutiny can intimidate the unprepared. But when your foundation is stable, external pressure does not destabilize you. Remain grounded, maintain integrity, guard your character. Rapid growth must be anchored in unwavering values. You must guard against burnout. Speed is sustainable when balanced. Rest is strategic. Reflection is necessary. Renewal preserves longevity. Acceleration is not about constant activity, it is about intentional progress. Pace yourself wisely. Manage energy deliberately. Steward momentum responsibly. When strategic alignment is complete, movement feels natural. You are not forcing outcomes, you are flowing with purpose. Doors open without manipulation. Conversations advance without struggle. Opportunities expand without strain. What once felt resistant begins to respond. What once moved slowly begins to accelerate. You were not designed for perpetual delay. You were equipped for advancement. There are seasons where heaven endorses your readiness with rapid progress, where preparation meets permission and speed becomes evidence of alignment. As you refine focus, eliminate distractions, strengthen discipline, cultivate boldness, and align every dimension of your life with your assignment, momentum gathers force. And when momentum gathers, acceleration is no longer a distant hope, but a present reality unfolding with precision, power, and undeniable progression. Prophetic momentum is not random movement. It is divinely energized advancement. It is when your steps are not only strategic, but synchronized with purpose. It is when progress feels empowered, directed, and sustained. Releasing prophetic momentum into every area of your life means refusing to compartmentalize your faith, your focus, and your discipline. It means allowing the same intensity you apply spiritually to flow into your decisions, your relationships, your finances, your health, and your calling. Momentum begins with a decision to no longer tolerate stagnation, a decision to confront complacency, a decision to break agreement with limitation. When you decide internally that forward is the only direction, something shifts. Your posture changes, your language changes, your expectations change. And once expectation shifts, behavior follows. Prophetic momentum is fueled by vision. Without vision, movement becomes aimless. You can be active yet ineffective. But when vision is clear, actions become intentional. You wake up with direction. You prioritize with purpose. You measure progress with discernment. Vision anchors momentum so that it does not scatter into distraction. There are areas of your life that may have been neglected. Spiritual passion without practical structure creates imbalance. Practical discipline without spiritual alignment creates emptiness. Prophetic momentum integrates both. It ensures that your prayer life empowers your productivity. It ensures that your discipline reflects your devotion. When the spiritual and practical converge, acceleration becomes holistic. Momentum requires consistency. Intensity is powerful, but consistency is transformative. One inspired day cannot compensate for weeks of inconsistency. Prophetic momentum is sustained through daily obedience. It is built through repeated alignment. It grows through small, faithful actions that compound over time. You do not wait for motivation, you cultivate discipline. There are emotional barriers that resist momentum. Fear of failure can slow initiative. Fear of success can sabotage opportunity. Fear of visibility can shrink influence. To release prophetic momentum, you must confront fear with truth. Fear magnifies risk but minimizes potential. Faith magnifies possibility and reframes risk as growth. When faith governs your decisions, courage becomes habitual. Momentum also requires forgiveness. Unresolved offense drains energy. Bitterness anchors you to past pain. Resentment clouds judgment. You cannot accelerate while carrying emotional weight from yesterday. Release is not weakness, it is liberation. When you forgive, you reclaim focus. When you let go, you regain strength. Emotional freedom fuels forward movement. Your environment influences your velocity. If you surround yourself with negativity, momentum slows. If you align with encouragement, growth accelerates. Conversations matter. Atmospheres matter. Influence matters. Evaluate what you consume mentally and relationally. Momentum thrives where belief is reinforced. Financial momentum requires stewardship. Resources must be managed with wisdom. Spending must align with vision. Investment must reflect intention. Generosity must flow from discipline rather than impulse. Prosperity responds to order. When your financial habits align with long-term purpose, stability increases and opportunities expand. Physical health impacts momentum. Fatigue reduces clarity. Neglect weakens focus. Your body is the vessel through which purpose operates. Strengthen it, nourish it, rest it, honor it. Sustainable momentum requires energy. Energy requires stewardship. There are moments when prophetic momentum feels subtle at first. A shift in perspective, a renewed clarity, an unexpected opportunity, a conversation that opens possibility. Pay attention to small shifts. They often precede significant breakthroughs. Momentum rarely begins with spectacle, it begins with alignment. Discipline protects momentum. Distraction diminishes it. Guard your time, protect your focus. Eliminate unnecessary commitments. Learn to say no without guilt. Every yes has a cost. Ensure that your yes aligns with purpose. Strategic boundaries preserve velocity. Prophetic momentum also requires adaptability. Rigidity can restrict progress. When new information emerges, adjust. When strategy needs refinement, refine. When growth demands evolution, evolve. Stagnation often hides in stubbornness. Wisdom embraces learning. You must speak in alignment with momentum. Words shape atmosphere. Declarations influence direction. If you constantly verbalize limitation, you reinforce it. If you consistently declare growth, you reinforce expectancy. Speech is not empty, it frames perception. Frame your future with intention. Celebrate progress without becoming complacent. Gratitude strengthens resilience. Reflection reinforces clarity. But do not settle in achievement. Momentum is sustained through continuous growth. What worked yesterday may need expansion tomorrow. Stay hungry for refinement. There will be resistance. Growth attracts challenge. Advancement invites scrutiny, but resistance does not cancel momentum. It tests commitment. When obstacles arise, do not retreat. Adjust strategy, strengthen resolve, continue forward. Persistence transforms resistance into refinement. Prophetic momentum is not merely about personal success. It is about impact. As you advance, others are influenced. As you grow, others are inspired. Your obedience extends beyond you. Your discipline echoes into environments you touch. Momentum creates ripple effects. You are not designed to remain static. You were created with capacity to expand, to build, to influence, to transform. Every area of your life can experience forward movement, spiritually deeper, mentally sharper, emotionally stronger, financially wiser, relationally healthier, professionally elevated. When alignment becomes consistent and obedience becomes daily, stagnation loses its grip. Momentum builds as you move. Clarity increases as you act. Confidence strengthens as you persist. Each step reinforces the next. Each victory fuels another. And as you commit to holistic alignment, disciplined execution, courageous faith, and intentional growth, prophetic momentum begins to permeate every dimension of your life, pushing you beyond limitation, beyond hesitation, beyond past cycles, into sustained advancement that reflects purpose, power, and undeniable progression. Good morning, champions of destiny. This is the day the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. It is as Monday, March 9, 2026. And today we step into a divine recalibration. Welcome to your AMI, Pura Mayan Sector ASD2IK and this is not just another devotional moment. This is a strategic interruption to every negative pattern, every limiting belief, and every internal dialogue that has tried to sabotage your success. Before you win in the marketplace, before you win in relationships, before you win in your calling, you must first win in your mind. Because your life will always move in the direction of your strongest thoughts. What you consistently think, you eventually become. What you repeatedly say, you eventually see. Today, we are dismantling mental strongholds. Today, we are evicting doubt. Today, we are silencing the voice of fear and amplifying the voice of faith. The battlefield is in the mind, but victory is in your mouth. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and you are about to weaponize your words. No more rehearsing failure. No more prophesying problems. No more speaking what you see. From this moment forward, you will speak what you believe. You will declare what God has promised. You will align your thoughts with heaven's blueprint and watch your reality shift accordingly. Some of you have been fighting external battles, not realizing the real war has been internal. But today we reset. We reset your thinking from scarcity to abundance. We reset your perspective from victim to victor. We reset your language from I can't to it is done. This is your mental renovation. This is your spiritual upgrade. This is your divine reprogramming. When your mindset shifts, your momentum changes. When your words change, your world changes. You are not here by accident. You clicked on this prayer because heaven is recalibrating you for acceleration. You are being positioned to think strategically, speak prophetically, and win decisively. So wherever you are right now, pause, take a breath, prepare your spirit. because we are about to enter into an atomic dimension of prayer that will reset your mind, align your mouth, and activate your victory. Get ready to think differently. Get ready to speak boldly. Get ready to win unapologetically. Let's pray. Every visible battle you are facing right now has an invisible root. Before the conflict shows up in your finances, it first whispers in your thoughts. Before tension manifests in your relationships, it forms as an unchecked narrative in your mind. Before you ever experience defeat externally, you have rehearsed it internally. The greatest war you will ever fight is not with people, not with systems, not with circumstances. It is the war within. And if you are going to win in any arena of your life, you must first conquer the territory of your thinking. The mind is the command center of your destiny. It is the control room where decisions are formed, beliefs are reinforced, and outcomes are shaped. If the enemy can infiltrate your thoughts, he can influence your direction. If doubt can dominate your thinking, it will eventually dictate your actions. That is why you cannot afford to be passive about what occupies your mind. A neglected mind becomes a playground for fear. An undisciplined thought life becomes an incubator for limitation. Many people are trying to fight spiritual battles with emotional reactions. They're responding to pressure without first addressing perception. But perception determines response. If you see yourself as overwhelmed, you will respond from anxiety. If you see yourself as outnumbered, you will respond from intimidation. But when you see yourself as empowered, equipped, and anointed for the assignment, you respond from authority. Winning the war within means confronting the lies you have tolerated about yourself. Some of you have internalized failure as identity. You don't just think you failed, you think you are a failure. You don't just believe you made a mistake, you believe you are a mistake. And that internal agreement has been sabotaging your confidence. The war within is about breaking agreement with every narrative that contradicts your divine design. It is about refusing to rehearse memories of defeat and instead choosing to meditate on promises of victory. Your thoughts are seeds. Whatever you consistently plant in your mind will eventually grow in your life. If you plant seeds of inadequacy, you will harvest insecurity. If you plant seeds of fear, you will harvest hesitation. But if you plant seeds of faith, expectation, and boldness, you will harvest courage and clarity. You must become intentional about what you allow to take root in your consciousness. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every idea deserves your agreement. There are patterns of thinking that have been passed down through environments, through experiences, through culture. You may have grown up hearing that success is for other people. You may have been conditioned to expect disappointment. You may have witnessed struggle so consistently that it became normal to anticipate lack. But winning the war within requires you to challenge inherited limitations. Just because a thought feels familiar does not mean it is true. Familiarity is not validation. The battlefield of the mind is subtle. It does not always announce itself with obvious negativity. Sometimes it disguises itself as realism. It whispers, "Be practical, don't expect too much." Lower your standards so you won't be disappointed. But realism without faith becomes resignation, and resignation is silent surrender. You were not created to settle. You were designed to subdue. You were not anointed to survive. You were empowered to advance. When pressure increases, unrenewed thoughts rise to the surface. Stress reveals what you truly believe. In moments of uncertainty, what you say to yourself matters more than what others say about you. Do you declare, "I can't handle this"? Or do you affirm, "I am equipped for this season"? Do you retreat into self-doubt, or do you rise in strategic thinking? Winning internally means choosing your response before circumstances force a reaction. Self-sabotage is often the result of unresolved internal conflict. You desire success, but you secretly question whether you deserve it. You pursue opportunity, but you anticipate rejection. That internal contradiction creates hesitation, and hesitation delays manifestation. When your mind is divided, your momentum is disrupted. But when your mind is aligned with purpose, your steps become decisive. Clarity in thought produces confidence in action. You must audit your internal conversations. Pay attention to what you repeatedly tell yourself. Are you speaking possibility or predicting problems? Are you envisioning expansion or expecting limitation? The words you whisper internally are shaping the structure of your future. If you constantly tell yourself that you are behind, you will move with anxiety. If you constantly remind yourself that you are called, chosen, and capable, you will move with conviction. Winning the war within also requires discipline. Discipline is not restriction, it is alignment. It is the intentional choice to redirect a negative thought before it becomes a destructive belief. It is catching the narrative of fear and replacing it with a declaration of faith. It is refusing to entertain mental images of failure and instead visualizing victory. This is not denial, it is strategic focus. You are training your mind to cooperate with your destiny. There will be moments when old patterns attempt to resurface. Thoughts of inadequacy may try to knock on the door of your consciousness. Memories of past disappointments may attempt to replay themselves in your imagination. But you are not obligated to host every thought that visits you. You have authority over your mental environment. You can evict what does not belong. You can dismantle arguments that exalt themselves against your purpose. Peace is not the absence of pressure, it is the mastery of perspective. When you win internally, external chaos loses its power to destabilize you. You may face challenges, but you will not be consumed by them. You may encounter opposition, but you will not internalize intimidation. Your stability will not come from perfect circumstances. It will come from a fortified mindset. The war within is not won in a single moment. It is won through consistent renewal. It is a daily decision to think higher, speak stronger, and believe bigger. It is choosing faith over fear when evidence is incomplete. It is trusting that your internal alignment will eventually produce external evidence. When your mind becomes your ally instead of your adversary, you move differently. You strategize differently. You respond differently. And as you conquer your thoughts, you will notice a shift. Confidence will replace confusion. Focus will replace fragmentation. Authority will replace anxiety. Because once you win the war within, no external battle can permanently defeat you. Your mindset will become your stronghold. Your belief system will become your fortress. Your thoughts will no longer betray your potential, but will propel you toward it. The most powerful conversations you will ever have are the ones you have with yourself. Long before you speak to the world, you speak within. Long before you make a move, you make an internal decision. Your inner dialogue is the script that your life follows. If the script is filled with limitation, fear, and self-doubt, your actions will mirror that narrative. But when you reprogram your inner dialogue, you rewrite the trajectory of your destiny. Many people are unaware of how negative their internal language has become. They have normalized self-criticism. They have accepted insecurity as humility. They have mistaken fear for wisdom. But there is a difference between being cautious and being conditioned to expect failure. If the first response in your mind is always, what if it doesn't work, instead of, what if it succeeds beyond expectation, then your internal programming needs to be upgraded. Your mind operates like a system that responds to repetition. Whatever you consistently tell yourself becomes familiar. Whatever becomes familiar begins to feel true. If you repeatedly say, I'm not good enough, your subconscious will look for evidence to support that belief. If you consistently think, I always mess things up, your focus will gravitate toward mistakes rather than progress. Reprogramming your inner dialogue requires interrupting these automatic scripts. You cannot afford to let past experiences dictate present identity. Just because you failed once does not mean you are destined to fail again. Just because you were rejected does not mean you are unworthy. But if you continue to rehearse those moments internally, you reinforce them as defining truths. Reprogramming means confronting those internalized conclusions and challenging their authority. It means asking yourself whether the story you are telling is aligned with your potential or anchored in your pain. There are voices that echo from childhood, from past relationships, from former disappointments. Sometimes the negative dialogue in your mind is not even originally yours. It was inherited. It was absorbed. It was spoken over you so frequently that it became embedded in your self-perception. Reprogramming requires discernment. You must identify which thoughts are truly yours and which ones were planted by environments that underestimated you. You were designed with the capacity for strategic thinking, creative insight, and bold decision-making. But if your internal dialogue is constantly minimizing your capability, you will hesitate when it is time to act. You will second-guess opportunities. You will delay decisions. You will shrink in rooms where you were meant to lead. The war is not in the opportunity. It is in the interpretation. How you interpret yourself determines how you show up. Reprogramming your inner dialogue begins with awareness. You must become conscious of your mental patterns. When pressure arises, what do you automatically say to yourself? When you make a mistake, do you offer yourself correction or condemnation? When you face a challenge, do you declare defeat or strategy? These responses reveal the condition of your internal programming. Once you become aware, you must become intentional. It is not enough to notice negative self-talk, you must replace it. Every limiting statement needs a counter-declaration. When your mind says, I can't handle this, you respond with, I am equipped for this assignment. When your thoughts whisper, you're behind, you declare, I am right on time for my purpose. This is not empty affirmation, it is mental alignment. You are training your mind to cooperate with your calling. Consistency is the key to transformation. A single positive thought will not override years of negative conditioning, but repeated declarations begin to create new neural pathways. Over time, confidence becomes your default instead of doubt. Expectation replaces anxiety. Vision replaces fear. What once felt unnatural begins to feel normal. That is the power of reprogramming. Your inner dialogue also affects your emotional stability. If you constantly interpret circumstances as threats, your body will respond with stress. If you frame every delay as a disaster, your peace will be disrupted. But when you shift your language from panic to purpose, your emotions begin to stabilize. You start seeing challenges as opportunities for refinement rather than evidence of failure. Reprogramming does not mean ignoring reality. It means redefining it. It means looking at a problem and asking, what strategy can I apply? Instead of declaring, this will never work. It means acknowledging obstacles without surrendering authority. Your thoughts should serve you, not sabotage you. They should propel you forward, not paralyze your progress. There is a difference between humility and self-rejection. True humility recognizes growth areas while still affirming value. Self-rejection magnifies flaws and minimizes strengths. If your inner dialogue constantly highlights what you lack, you will overlook what you possess. Reprogramming requires balance. You acknowledge areas for improvement without diminishing your inherent worth. Your words internally shape your posture externally. If you tell yourself that you belong in the room, you will sit differently, speak differently, and carry yourself with confidence. If you internally question your legitimacy, your body language will reflect insecurity. The shift begins within. The transformation is invisible before it becomes visible. Guard your mental environment. Just as you filter what you allow into your physical space, you must filter what you allow into your consciousness. Media, conversations, and environments influence internal dialogue. If you surround yourself with negativity, your thoughts will mirror that atmosphere. If you expose yourself to wisdom, encouragement, and vision, your inner narrative will elevate. Reprogramming your inner dialogue is an act of spiritual discipline and strategic intelligence. It requires patience. It requires persistence. There will be moments when old thoughts attempt to resurface. Patterns do not disappear without resistance. But every time you choose a higher thought, you weaken the grip of the old narrative. Your mind is not your enemy, it is your instrument. When tuned correctly, it produces harmony with your purpose. When neglected, it produces dissonance. The goal is not perfection, it is progress. Each day you refine your internal language, you strengthen your mental foundation. You were never meant to live at the mercy of unexamined thoughts. You were given the authority to choose what you believe, what you declare, and what you internalize. As you reprogram your inner dialogue, you begin to experience a shift in clarity, confidence, and courage. The same mind that once rehearsed limitation will begin to imagine expansion. The same voice that once criticized will begin to affirm capability. The same internal script that predicted failure will begin to declare advancement. Your words are not casual sounds released into the air. They are containers of power. Every time you open your mouth, you are issuing permissions. You are authorizing outcomes. You are framing reality. Speak what you seek is not motivational rhetoric. It is a spiritual and strategic principle. What you consistently declare, you begin to align with. What you repeatedly confess, you begin to pursue. Your language sets the direction of your life. Many people are speaking what they see instead of speaking what they desire. They narrate the problem in detail. They rehearse the obstacles with precision. They magnify what is wrong. And then they wonder why progress feels distant. When you continually articulate the limitation, you reinforce it. When you constantly describe the lack, you deepen your awareness of it. Your mouth becomes a microphone for your fear instead of a megaphone for your faith. If you want different results, you must disrupt negative declarations. Words create expectation. Expectation influences behavior. Behavior produces outcomes. It begins with what you say. If your language is saturated with doubt, hesitation will follow. If your words are filled with possibility, you will move with confidence. The shift begins in your speech. Before you ever see the manifestation, you must make the declaration. There is a difference between acknowledging reality and agreeing with defeat. You can recognize a challenge without surrendering to it. You can admit that something is difficult without announcing that it is impossible. When you speak what you seek, you are not denying facts, you are declaring intention. You are aligning your language with the future you intend to create rather than the present you are trying to escape. Pay attention to the phrases you use daily. Do you say, "I'm always broke. Nothing ever works out for me. I can't catch a break"? These statements may feel harmless, but they are seeds. When planted repeatedly, they grow into belief systems. Your subconscious listens to your words. It interprets repetition as instruction. If you constantly declare struggle, your mind will unconsciously make decisions that align with that narrative. Speaking what you seek requires discipline. It is easy to complain. It is effortless to criticize. It takes intention to declare victory before you see evidence. It takes maturity to prophesy progress when circumstances appear stagnant. But the ones who win consistently are those who understand that language is a tool. They do not allow frustration to dictate their speech. They choose alignment over impulse. When you say, "I am capable," you begin to look for opportunities to demonstrate competence. When you declare, "I am growing," you interpret challenges as development rather than defeat. When you affirm, "I am favored," you become attentive to open doors instead of closed ones. Your words tune your perception, they filter your focus. They determine what you notice and what you ignore. Your environment also responds to your speech. People pick up on the energy of your declarations. If you constantly speak negativity, you create an atmosphere of limitation. If you consistently articulate vision and expectation, you create an atmosphere of possibility. Leaders understand this principle. They speak outcomes into rooms before those outcomes are visible. They articulate direction before the path is clear. There will be moments when you feel tempted to verbalize every frustration. But not every thought deserves expression. Some thoughts need to be processed privately, not projected publicly. When you speak prematurely from emotion, you can sabotage momentum. When you speak strategically from conviction, you activate alignment. Wisdom is knowing when to be silent and when to declare. Speaking what you seek also means being specific. Vague language produces vague results. If you say, "I just want things to get better," your mind has no clear target. But if you declare, "I am building financial stability, I am strengthening my discipline, I am cultivating healthy relationships," you create clarity. Clarity fuels action. Precision in speech produces precision in pursuit. It is not enough to think positively, you must articulate intentionally. Thoughts influence you internally, but words carry external impact. When you verbalize a declaration, you reinforce it. You hear yourself say it. Others hear you say it. It moves from silent belief to audible commitment. There is power in hearing your own voice affirm your direction. Guard against sarcasm that undermines your confidence. Sometimes people joke about their insecurities so frequently that the joke becomes identity. "I'm so bad with money. I'm just lazy. I'm terrible at relationships." Even if spoken playfully, repetition imprints. Your words are shaping how you see yourself. Do not reduce your potential with careless commentary. Consistency matters more than intensity. One bold declaration followed by days of negative speech will not produce transformation. But daily alignment between what you desire and what you declare will gradually shift your internal framework. Over time, your language will become a natural extension of your belief. You will speak with conviction instead of uncertainty. Speaking what you seek also requires integrity. Your declarations must be supported by corresponding action. When you say, "I am disciplined," your habits should begin to reflect that statement. When you declare, "I am focused," your behavior should align with that vision. Words open the door, actions walk through it. Alignment between speech and strategy creates momentum. Silence can be strategic, but when it is time to speak, do not shrink. Declare advancement over stagnation. Announce clarity over confusion. Articulate strength over weakness. Your voice is not accidental, it is instrumental. Use it to shape your atmosphere. Use it to reinforce your direction. Use it to challenge internal doubt. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are a participant in creation. Your language is one of the tools you have been given to construct your future. Every declaration is a brick. Every affirmation is a foundation. If you do not intentionally build with your words, you may unintentionally reinforce what you are trying to escape. When obstacles appear, let your response be aligned with your objective. If you seek growth, speak growth. If you seek peace, speak peace. If you seek success, speak success. Let your language reflect your destination rather than your detour. Let your mouth become a channel for vision instead of a carrier of complaint. Let your speech reinforce the identity you are stepping into rather than the insecurity you are leaving behind. There is a critical difference between thinking like a victim and thinking like an owner. A victim mindset reacts, an owner mindset responds. A victim waits for rescue, an owner initiates strategy. When you shift from scarcity to strategy, you stop focusing on what is missing and start maximizing what is available. You move from complaint to calculation, from frustration to formulation. This shift is not cosmetic, it is foundational. Scarcity thinking is subtle. It does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it disguises itself as humility or caution. It whispers, "There isn't enough. You don't have what it takes. This opportunity is too big for you." Scarcity magnifies limitations and minimizes possibilities. It keeps your vision small and your expectations lower than your potential. When you operate from scarcity, you make decisions based on fear of loss instead of anticipation of growth. Strategy thinking, on the other hand, is rooted in awareness and intention. It does not deny challenges, but it refuses to be intimidated by them. It asks, what can be leveraged? What can be learned? What can be built from here? A strategy requires you to take responsibility for your outcomes. It calls you to evaluate your resources, refine your skills, and align your actions with long-term objectives. When you think like a victim, you interpret obstacles as evidence that you should stop. When you think like an owner, you interpret obstacles as signals to adjust your approach. The victim mindset says, "Why is this happening to me?" The owner mindset asks, "What is this teaching me?" That single shift in questioning changes your posture. It moves you from passive frustration to active problem solving. Scarcity narrows your focus to what you lack. It constantly reminds you of the doors that did not open, the support you did not receive, the opportunities that passed you by. It keeps you rehearsing disappointment. But strategy expands your focus to what is still possible. It trains you to see potential partnerships, overlooked advantages, and hidden opportunities within the challenge. Scarcity drains energy. Strategy generates momentum. You cannot build abundance while thinking in limitation. If you believe there is never enough time, you will misuse the time you have. If you believe there is never enough money, you will make decisions from panic rather than planning. If you believe there is never enough opportunity, you will hesitate when doors appear. Your internal framework determines your external execution. Thinking like an owner means understanding that you are accountable for stewardship. Even if you did not choose the starting point, you can choose the response. You may not control every circumstance, but you control your preparation. Owners evaluate what they have and ask how to multiply it. They do not despise small beginnings, they develop them. They do not wait for perfect conditions. They optimize present ones. A victim mindset often looks for someone to blame. It assigns responsibility outward. It attributes stagnation to people, systems, and past experiences. While external factors can influence your journey, they do not have to define it. Strategy thinking acknowledges external realities without surrendering internal authority. It says, "This may be challenging, but I will find a way to navigate it." When you shift into strategy, you become proactive. You plan instead of procrastinating. You research instead of reacting. You analyze patterns instead of repeating them unconsciously. Strategy requires discipline. It calls you to examine habits, routines, and priorities. It demands that you move beyond emotional impulses and make calculated decisions aligned with your goals. Scarcity often leads to comparison. When you believe there is limited success available, you measure yourself against others. You feel threatened by someone else's progress. You interpret their advancement as your disadvantage, but strategy understands that growth is not a limited resource. It recognizes that collaboration can multiply results. It focuses on development rather than competition. Thinking like an owner also changes how you handle setbacks. A victim sees failure as confirmation of inadequacy. An owner sees failure as data. Data can be analyzed. It can be adjusted. It can inform better decisions moving forward. When you detach your identity from your mistakes, you gain the freedom to learn from them. You stop internalizing disappointment and start extracting insight. Scarcity thinking keeps you in survival mode. It prioritizes immediate relief over long-term reward. It pushes you to make decisions that feel safe rather than strategic. But strategy thinking embraces delayed gratification. It understands that discipline today produces dividends tomorrow. It is willing to endure temporary discomfort for sustainable growth. Ownership also transforms your language. Instead of saying, I can't because I don't have, you begin to say, how can I maximize what I have? Instead of declaring, this isn't fair, you ask, what is within my control? This shift does not ignore injustice or challenge. It refuses to let them dictate your destiny. It anchors you in responsibility rather than resentment. Strategy requires vision. Without vision, you revert to reaction. When you are clear about where you are going, you make different choices. You allocate time differently. You protect your focus. You become selective about commitments. Scarcity says yes to everything out of fear of missing out. Strategy says no when necessary to preserve alignment. Your mindset determines your movement. If you see yourself as powerless, you will move cautiously and inconsistently. If you see yourself as an owner of your assignment, you will move deliberately. You will track progress. You will refine systems. You will seek mentorship. You will invest in growth. Ownership creates intention in every area of life. There will be moments when scarcity attempts to resurface, especially in seasons of uncertainty. But every time you consciously choose strategy over fear, you reinforce a new pattern, you strengthen resilience, you build confidence, you expand capacity. The more you practice strategic thinking, the more natural it becomes. You are not designed to live reacting to circumstances. You are designed to cultivate, to build, to innovate. Shifting from scarcity to strategy is about reclaiming that authority. It is about refusing to be defined by what is absent and instead focusing on what can be activated. It is about thinking beyond the immediate and positioning yourself for sustainable success. When you operate from ownership, you stop waiting for change and start engineering it. There is a dimension of language that goes beyond conversation. It is not casual speech, not reactive commentary, not emotional expression. It is intentional declaration. Activating prophetic language means you stop narrating your present limitations and start announcing your future reality. It means you speak from revelation instead of reaction. You declare from conviction instead of circumstance. Most people allow their environment to dictate their vocabulary. When things look uncertain, their words become uncertain. When pressure increases, their language becomes pessimistic. When opposition appears, their tone shifts to doubt. But prophetic language refuses to be controlled by visible evidence. It draws from a deeper awareness. It aligns speech with promise rather than pressure. You cannot activate prophetic language while entertaining passive thinking. Passive language says, I hope things change. Prophetic language says, change is in motion. Passive language says, maybe one day. Prophetic language says, this is my appointed time. The difference is authority. One speaks from possibility. The other speaks from certainty. When you activate prophetic language, you are not guessing about your future, you are aligning with it. Your words shape your internal atmosphere before they influence your external environment. When you declare strength in a moment of weakness, you are not denying the weakness, you are challenging it. When you proclaim clarity in the middle of confusion, you are setting direction. When you announce victory in the face of resistance, you're shifting your posture from defense to dominion. Prophetic language requires courage. It takes boldness to declare advancement when you feel behind. It takes confidence to speak abundance when resources appear limited. It takes spiritual awareness to articulate purpose when distractions are loud. But courage in speech produces stability in action. When you speak decisively, you begin to move decisively. Many people underestimate the creative power embedded in language. Words are not empty. They carry intention. They carry belief. They carry expectation. When you repeatedly declare something, you begin to align your thoughts and actions with that declaration. If you constantly say, I am overwhelmed, your body and mind respond accordingly. If you declare, I am equipped and empowered, your perspective begins to shift towards solutions. Activating prophetic language does not mean ignoring reality. It means redefining it. It means you refuse to allow temporary conditions to become permanent confessions. You may acknowledge the challenge, but you will not enthrone it with your speech. You may recognize the obstacle, but you will not magnify it beyond your authority. Your words must reflect where you are going, not just where you are standing. There is power in specificity. General declarations produce general focus. Specific declarations create intentional movement. Instead of vaguely saying, I want success, articulate what success looks like. Instead of casually stating, I need peace, define the peace you are cultivating. Prophetic language paints a picture. It gives your mind something concrete to pursue. Silence can be wisdom, but when it is time to speak, speak strategically. Do not allow frustration to be the loudest voice. Do not let fear narrate your circumstances. Train yourself to respond with alignment. When negativity attempts to surface, counter it with intention. When doubt whispers, answer it with declaration. You are not obligated to repeat every thought that crosses your mind. Prophetic language also influences the people around you. When you consistently speak with clarity and conviction, you create an atmosphere of expectation. Others begin to see what you see. They begin to align with your vision. Leadership is often revealed in speech. The way you articulate possibility can shift the morale of an entire environment. Guard against sarcasm that undermines your authority. Casual self-deprecation may seem harmless, but repetition reinforces identity. If you continually joke about incompetence or failure, your subconscious registers it as truth. Activate language that strengthens you. Speak in a way that reinforces your growth rather than diminishes your capacity. Consistency is critical. One powerful declaration cannot override a pattern of negative speech. Prophetic language must become habitual. It must be your reflex rather than your exception. When challenges arise, your first instinct should be alignment. When opportunities appear, your words should reflect readiness. You may not see immediate results when you shift your speech, but transformation often begins internally. Your confidence grows, your focus sharpens, your resilience strengthens. Over time, your external reality begins to mirror your internal alignment. The declarations you once spoke in faith begin to manifest in form. Activating prophetic language also requires listening. You must be attentive to what you are declaring daily. Are your words aligned with the identity you are stepping into? Are they consistent with the goals you are pursuing? If your speech contradicts your vision, you create internal conflict. Alignment between language and intention produces momentum. Do not wait for perfect conditions to speak boldly. Declare advancement in imperfect seasons. Announce growth in transitional moments. Speak life over dormant areas. Your words can awaken courage within you. They can shift your emotional climate. They can redirect your focus from obstacles to opportunities. You were given a voice for more than expression. You were given a voice for activation. Use it to affirm direction. Use it to reinforce discipline. Use it to strengthen resolve. When you speak from a place of clarity and conviction, you position yourself to act with purpose. Your declarations become anchors in uncertain seasons. They remind you of who you are and where you are going. Let your language rise above complaint. Let it reflect vision. Let it carry expectation. When you activate prophetic language, you step into a dimension of authority where your words are no longer reactions to circumstance, but instruments of transformation. You begin to speak not from fear of what might happen, but from confidence in what you are building. You declare not based on visible evidence, but based on internal alignment with purpose. Momentum is never accidental. It is the byproduct of alignment. When your thoughts are scattered, your energy is divided. When your beliefs are inconsistent, your actions become hesitant. But when your mindset is aligned with clarity, conviction, and confidence, movement becomes natural. Mental alignment produces momentum because what you believe internally determines how you behave externally. A misaligned mindset creates friction. You say you want growth, but you think in limitation. You declare success, but you anticipate failure. You pursue opportunity, but you expect rejection. That internal contradiction slows you down. It drains your energy. It causes you to second-guess decisions that require boldness. When your mind is divided, your progress is delayed. Alignment begins with agreement. What do you truly believe about yourself? Not what you post publicly, not what you declare in front of others, but what you consistently think in private moments. If your internal beliefs contradict your external goals, you will unconsciously sabotage your advancement. Mental alignment requires bringing your beliefs into harmony with your vision. Clarity is the foundation of momentum. When you are unclear about who you are or where you are going, hesitation follows. You overanalyze simple decisions. You delay necessary action. You wait for perfect conditions that never arrive. But when your mindset is clear, decisions become easier. You understand your priorities. You recognize distractions quickly. You move with intention instead of impulse. Momentum builds when action becomes consistent. Consistency flows from conviction, and conviction is born in the mind. If you are mentally uncertain, your actions will be sporadic. You will start strong and then retreat. You will initiate projects, but struggle to sustain them. But when your mind is anchored in belief, you follow through. You show up repeatedly. You maintain focus even when results are not immediate. Mental alignment also stabilizes your emotions. Without alignment, every setback feels personal. Every delay feels like defeat. Every obstacle feels like a sign to quit. But when your mindset is aligned with purpose, you interpret challenges differently. You see them as refinement rather than rejection. You view them as preparation rather than punishment. That interpretation keeps you moving forward. There is power in disciplined thinking. Discipline does not restrict you. It refines you. It trains your mind to reject narratives that undermine your confidence. It teaches you to redirect thoughts that trigger fear. When negative assumptions attempt to surface, you replace them with intentional beliefs. Over time, that discipline strengthens your resilience. Momentum is often lost in moments of doubt. Doubt slows your steps. It causes you to hesitate in conversations, opportunities, and decisions. But alignment quiets doubt. When you know what you stand for and what you are building, you move with authority. Authority produces speed. Speed produces progress. Mental alignment also influences how you manage time. When your mindset is clear, you prioritize effectively. You allocate energy toward what matters. You stop investing in distractions that dilute your focus. You become selective with commitments. That selectivity increases productivity. Productivity fuels momentum. If you constantly question your worth, you will move cautiously. If you constantly affirm your capability, you will move confidently. Confidence does not eliminate challenges. It changes your response to them. It empowers you to take calculated risks. It enables you to recover quickly from setbacks. It allows you to remain steady when outcomes are uncertain. Alignment requires intentional renewal. Old beliefs do not disappear automatically. Patterns of insecurity, fear, or procrastination may attempt to resurface. But every time you choose clarity over confusion, you reinforce a new pathway. Each decision to think strategically strengthens your foundation. Gradually, aligned thinking becomes your default rather than your exception. Momentum thrives in environments of focus. When your mind is cluttered with comparison, resentment, or anxiety, your energy is scattered. But when your thoughts are centered on growth and purpose, your efforts compound. Small actions accumulate. Minor improvements multiply. What once felt slow begins to accelerate. You cannot expect consistent progress with inconsistent thinking. If one day you believe in your vision and the next day you doubt it, your actions will fluctuate. A fluctuation disrupts rhythm. But when your mindset is stable, your rhythm strengthens. You build habits that support your objectives. You create systems that sustain your discipline. Mental alignment also transforms how you perceive yourself in rooms of opportunity. Instead of shrinking, you contribute. Instead of observing passively, you engage. Instead of waiting for validation, you bring value. That shift in posture opens doors. It attracts collaboration. It enhances influence. Your internal narrative determines your external pace. If you constantly tell yourself that you are behind, you will rush and make reactive decisions. If you affirm that you are progressing, you will move with composure. Composure enhances strategy. Strategy enhances results. Momentum is not about frantic activity. It is about directed movement. You can be busy and still stagnant. True momentum occurs when your actions are aligned with your purpose. Alignment eliminates wasted effort. It channels energy toward meaningful advancement. When your mindset is aligned, you trust your preparation, you trust your growth, you trust your process. That trust reduces hesitation. It strengthens follow through. It encourages persistence when outcomes are delayed. Mental alignment produces internal stability. Internal stability produces external consistency. And consistency over time produces measurable progress. As your thoughts align with your vision, your decisions become sharper. Your actions become intentional. Your resilience becomes visible. What once required constant motivation becomes natural movement. What once felt forced becomes fluid. What once seemed distant begins to draw closer as your internal agreement with success generates forward motion.